Welcome to the Dynamic Duel Podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Johnny DC.
And I'm his twin brother, Marvelous Joe.
And in this episode, we will be reviewing Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. And spoiler alert, it was pretty fantabulous.
It was entertaining, but had a lot of issues, and we will talk all about those issues later on in this episode.
Before that, we're going to break down the news items from the past week pertaining to Marvel and DC films, of which really there's only the Oscar news.
Yeah, the Academy Awards were this past Sunday, and the Joker walked away with a couple of awards, even though it was nominated for like a bajillion.
I'm sorry, how many did Marvel walk away with?
So we'll be talking about that news later on in this episode. As always, we list our segment times in the episode description, so go ahead and check out the show notes if you want to jump ahead to a specific topic. We want to give a huge shout out to Random Human 123 for leaving us a review on iTunes.
And we want to remind everyone to please share, subscribe, rate, and review our show on whatever platform you happen to be listening to us on. It goes a long way in helping us grow our audience.
But now that that's done,
quick to the No Prize.
A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out up until the 90s to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Duel No Prize, is a digital award that we post on social media. Jonathan personally draws for those who we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
Last week's question was, after seeing the Disney Plus Super Bowl footage, which Marvel show from that platform were you most excited to see? Falcon and the Winter Soldier, WandaVision, or Loki, and why?
Before we announce the winner, let's get into our honorable mentions. Gavin Amai gets honorable mention for his answer of WandaVision. He's most excited to see that because it seems like it's going to have the same qualities as FX's Legion show, which was another Marvel show, in that it was intelligent yet mind-blowing.
Jace Crump also said WandaVision because he's hearing that the show is bonkers and he just doesn't know what to expect, so it's exciting.
Joshua Smith gets honorable mention, saying that he is most excited to see the Loki show because he wonders if Loki's meddling with the multiverse will lead to MCU timeline changes, which is a possibility. One never knows.
Shannon Sanderson gave the answer of WandaVision because it reminds him of the Tom King Vision comics run, and also because it has ties to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness film that's coming up.
Inferno Bat 6 says they're looking forward most to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and stated that they will only see WandaVision if Quicksilver is in it, which would be really cool. I would love to see Quicksilver in WandaVision.
Harrison Fox also gave the answer of WandaVision, saying that there are so many possibilities with the mental breakdown and alternate realities that are tied to Scarlet Witch's power. And he's also excited that it has ties to the Doctor Strange sequel.
Calvin John Della Merced is looking forward most to WandaVision because he's really excited to see the reality-altering powers of Wanda.
So almost everyone said WandaVision.
Yeah, WandaVision was by far the winner of that Super Bowl TV spot and how much it was able to tease audiences and get them excited and anticipating the show. In fact, our winner of this week's No Prize, Sean Tenney, also gave the answer of WandaVision, but interestingly enough, proposed the theory that the show may in fact introduce mutants into the Marvel Universe, since the story partially adapts the House of M storyline from the comics, which is an interesting concept that I hadn't thought of before. What if mutants in the Marvel Universe are teased at slightly within not the MCU films, but these Disney Plus shows? Something to think about.
That'd be cool. The sooner the better.
Yeah. So congrats to Sean Tenney for winning this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want to win your own No Prize, go ahead and stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. With that out of the way,
on to the news. Okay, so in Sunday night's Oscars, The Joker walked away with 2 wins. It won for Best Original Music Score, which was given to composer Hildur Guðnadóttir, and it won for Best Actor, which was given to Joaquin Phoenix. Now, it's a big win for comic book films and for DC. It didn't win in all of the categories it was nominated in,
but the Joker movie was mentioned time and time again with all the nominations that it did receive.
Right.
11 in total.
Now, this is the second time that an actor has won an Academy Award for the role of the Joker.
Right.
Jared Leto is super pissed off right now.
Yeah, Paul, he's always pissed off ever since he did Suicide Squad. But yeah, Heath Ledger first won the award for his role in The Dark Knight posthumously.
Now, going into the night, I was super excited because The Joker, not only did it have more nominations than any superhero film has ever received, but it also had more nominations than any of the films of that night. It was nominated for Best Sound Editing, which it lost to Ford vs. Ferrari. Best Makeup and Hairstyling, which it lost to Bombshell. Best Film Editing, which it lost to Ford vs. Ferrari. Best Costume Design, which it lost to Little Women. I hate reading these. Best Sound Mixing, which it lost to 1917. You know, I haven't seen that movie, and I'm not going to see it now. Best Cinematography, which it also lost to 1917. Best Adapted Screenplay, which it lost to Taika Waititi.
For Jojo Rabbit?
Yeah. Best Director, which it lost to Bong Joon-ho for Parasite. And finally, and most heartbreakingly, Best Picture, also to Parasite.
2 out of 11 ain't bad, you know? Although Black Panther last year was nominated in 7 categories and it won 3 of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was almost batting 500.
You know, if Parasite didn't come out this year, I wonder how many of these awards Joker would have won.
They would have all gone to 1917.
All in all, I can't be too sad because now DC is winning in the Oscar race against Marvel.
Yeah, because Avengers Endgame did not win for Best Visual Effects like it was supposed to. It got robbed.
Who did it lose to?
It lost to 1917. I also will never be seeing that movie now. So now DC has 7 Oscars to
Right.
Marvel's 6.
Yep.
So you guys are ahead by 1 now. The Joker was a great movie. It was deserving of a lot of those awards.
I guess Hildur Guðnadóttir was the first woman in 20 years to win the Academy Award for Best Original Score.
Oh, wow. 20 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm just like truly humbled and honored that DC
Don't be giving a
has
speech.
received these.
You didn't win these awards.
I'm accepting this for the fans though. Because like we were also winners on Sunday night, you know?
Speaking of award speeches, what did you think of Joaquin Phoenix's speech?
Like he's been winning a lot of awards and his speeches have all been really like apologetic in a way. During his Oscar speech, like he admitted that he's been like a jerk in previous film sets and stuff like that.
Yeah, and hard to work with.
Yeah.
It's nice to see him still staying so humble at the essential peak of his career.
Yeah, absolutely. The speeches ran a little long this year.
Yeah, him and Renee Zellweger just went on and on and on. I'm surprised they didn't get played off.
Right. But I'm really proud of Joaquin Phoenix, and I really hope he comes back to the role.
Yeah, now that award seasons are over, they can stop concentrating on that first movie and, start talking about a potential sequel.
You know, I predicted this win last year. I knew that it was going to win a couple. I think I said that like in last year's Oscar episode.
Oh, yeah, I think that was Elastigirl versus Ms. Marvel. Yeah, you did call it. You did say that the Joker was going to win a few Oscars. And DC may be ahead of the game now, but next year, Marvel's going to win some Oscars.
Yeah, right.
I don't know which movies are going to win yet, but Marvel's going to take back its lead next year.
Yeah, until Birds of Prey wins for hair and makeup. This brings us to our question of the week.
Make a prediction. Which 2020 Marvel or DC film do you think will win an Oscar and in what category?
Post your answer to our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com. We'll pick our favorite answer and draw that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to social media.
I have no idea how we're going to pick a winner for that, but that's future us's problem.
Yep.
Not going to worry about that right now.
No.
But I think that does it for all the news for this episode for this week. Again, it's been a slow news week. We could talk about the potential news that Sam Raimi is being eyeballed by Marvel Studios to direct the Doctor Strange sequel. But since that's still a rumor for right now, I don't want to speculate too much on it until it's officially announced, because that's when it'll be news. So we'll talk about that then. So let's go ahead and get on to the main event of this episode, where we review the film Birds of Prey and the fantabulistic, espialidocious Harley Quinn.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn opened this past weekend, and it, of course, stars Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, returning to play the character from the 2016 film Suicide Squad.
No matter what people say about this movie, at the very least, everyone can agree that it was better than Suicide Squad.
Which probably means this movie will win an Oscar, This movie, of course, is still in theaters, so if you haven't seen it yet, I would not listen any further, as this is a spoiler review.
Right, as all of our reviews are.
So in addition to spoilers from this movie, we're also going to be talking about characters from the comics and their backstories and how they relate to the characters in this film. So if you aren't familiar with characters such as Cassandra Cain, I would recommend going back to one of our older episodes called Batgirl versus X-23.
Right. Actually, I don't think that'll do you any good because the Cassandra Cain in this movie was nothing like the Cassandra Cain from the comics.
Right. But for comparison purposes.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I think we've done all of the Birds of Prey characters now.
Yeah, we've done Harley Quinn, we've done Huntress, we've done Black Canary.
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about those characters before going into this review, or before you even see the film, I recommend checking out those episodes. So for the longest time, and to a certain extent even now, I was upset that Margot Robbie chose to make a Birds of Prey film over, say, a Gotham City Sirens movie. Because the character of Harley Quinn was never a member of the Birds of Prey.
Right.
When the marketing for this film went underway, it became pretty clear that the film was going to be a more Harley-focused rather than Birds of Prey team-focused film. And I think it's pretty clear by the film's opening weekend box office that many of the comic fans feel slighted by the film title's false advertising or misguided interpretation of some of their favorite characters.
Well, it's not just comic book fans who feel slighted. I think it's the general movie-going audience that feel confused.
Yeah.
Because, well, one, they don't really know who the Birds of Prey are. Two, this isn't really the Birds of Prey. Three, people who actually do look up the Birds of Prey who are curious to find out more about this team before seeing the movie are going to find...
Not Harley Quinn.
Are definitely going to be confused. One of the biggest concerns you and I had for this movie leading up to it was the character design of the heroes featured in this movie. I'm learning more and more that character design is really such a huge aspect of the characters themselves. And the audience pays attention to that. Like, you look at the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies, the CGI ones from a few years ago, those movies bombed largely because the characters were unrecognizable.
Right.
You look at Sonic the Hedgehog, the first trailer that came out, that movie was largely derided because a lot of people didn't recognize that weird freaking devil creature as Sonic the Hedgehog.
That's a great example, actually.
Yeah, the studio went back and luckily they fixed the character of Sonic the Hedgehog. And
now I actually want to see the movie.
Yeah, it'll perform better because of that. Studios need to learn the lesson of branding and proper representation of the characters from the source material.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as a big DC fan, I totally see where a lot of these fans are coming from. After all, like, if a comic film isn't made for the fans, then who exactly is it made for? Because whoever this film was made for certainly wasn't interested in paying to see it in the theater.
Right.
And that's a shame, because the film was actually better than I thought it would be.
Uh-huh.
Like, not only was it entertaining and legitimately funny, its action sequences were badass.
Most of them.
And its zany cast members were terrific in their roles. Most of them as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm a big fan of all the performances here. Combined, they were less than the sum of their parts, but I don't think there was a single character that I disliked, except for Cassandra Cain and maybe partly Renee Montoya.
Rosie Perez.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is unquestionably a better version of this film out there than what we got.
Yeah.
I think there's a better Birds of Prey film that could have been told without Harley Quinn, one that probably wasn't rated R. And let's be honest, this film really didn't need to have that rating.
Absolutely not. I mean, you look at all the R-rated comic book movies that have come before this. You have the Punisher films, which, yeah, should be rated R because of the nature of the character. He's very brutal, very violent. There's a lot of gun violence in those movies. You have Deadpool, who is not only extremely violent due to the nature of his healing factor and, you know, his weapons and stuff like that, but he also has a very crass sense of humor that is more apt for an R rating. And then you have the Logan movie, which stars Wolverine, who also has that very violent power set that we finally got to see him unleash to its fullest extent in that film.
And Joker. Joker was rated R too.
Right. And that dealt with heavy themes. So all of those R ratings make sense to me. Now, the MPAA rated Birds of Prey rated R for strong violence and language throughout and some sexual and drug material.
You could have cut the language. The violence was barely rated R.
Yeah.
And you could have cut the cocaine scene.
I think by making this movie rated R, they limited their audience and excluded a wide population that probably would have been interested in seeing this movie. And by that, I mean, like, you know, young teenage girls.
Which is probably a majority of Harley Quinn fans with the cartoons and everything.
Yeah. I think the language and the R rating is indicative of a maybe type of stubbornness or arrogance on behalf of the director Kathy Yan and producer and star Margot Robbie in executing their vision that they thought was the best vision for this film, fans be damned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not to say that it is a bad vision necessarily. It's just not the vision that we wanted.
It's a strong vision.
It is.
And it's an entertaining one.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's not conducive for universe building, especially for future DC films.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think they kind of stylized themselves into a corner in terms of like offshoots of this film.
Yeah.
If we do see a legitimate Birds of Prey film, are they going to be wearing the tracksuits at the end? I kind of hope not. It's really hard not to compare what's in this movie to what's in the comics.
Yeah.
If I ignore the context of the comics and just try and go into this fresh, this is a good movie, I would say. Mm-hmm. It has a lot going for it. And talking about the film with multiple women, they've all described it as empowering. So in that aspect, I'm actually kind of proud of this film. And it was successful in that regard.
Yeah, if that was Kathy Yan's and Margot Robbie's ultimate goal, to empower women, not young girls, mind you, because they're not old enough to see this movie.
Right.
But to empower women, then they did a great job, I think.
What probably impressed me the most was probably the film's world building. Not only did we get the chance to see parts of Gotham City in live action that we've never seen before, like Amusement Mile or Founders Pier, but we also get to interact with ordinary citizens of Gotham in a way that I don't think we have in other films. Each character, whether it be like an Asian restaurant owner or a lady with an awkward laugh at a club, seem to have their own personality and like their own backstory. It seems like a really, really fleshed out world.
Yeah, the film did feel pretty interesting between, the set design and the characters and even the music. I think the movie feels just cool in a way that most movies don't.
Yeah, I really liked the music for this, actually. I was impressed by it. The soundtrack is actually pretty good. I think it was produced by the same person who did the soundtrack for Suicide Squad.
Yeah, but this soundtrack is better than Suicide Squad's.
You think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whenever I'm not entirely sure what genre a film falls into, I take a look at the soundtrack. The music for this film ranges from rap to pop to funk to punk, but one thing all of the songs have in common is that they're all pretty aggressive. And in that sense, I think it's a pretty good analog for the film, which at times could be like a cartoon-like comedy or a hardcore action movie or a police procedural, but it all fits into an aggressive girl power tone established by director Kathy Yan that, if I had to compare it to anything, it would be a Tarantino film.
Yeah, kind of. There were some very Tarantino-feeling transitions that were used here,
Right.
music cues, and even the cinematography in some spots, I think, felt very Tarantino to me. And the comedic tone of the film felt very Deadpool. So if I had to describe this movie to anybody, I would say that the film tries to be Deadpool meets Kill Bill. Now, it's not nearly as good as either of those films, but I do appreciate the effort.
Yeah, I mean, shoot for the moon, right?
Right.
I think a Tarantino-esque approach on a Harley Quinn film is a really smart approach to it.
Yeah.
But I question whether it was appropriate for starting a Birds of Prey franchise.
As we've always said, the movie should have been called Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey.
Absolutely. And I think we all saw that coming. I don't see how the studio didn't see that. You think they would have even thought that would have made them more money because of the name of Harley Quinn and how popular the character is.
Right.
There are a lot of characters in this film, some great ones, that get shortchanged because they have to take a backseat to Harley Quinn. And not only are most of the characters shortchanged, but again, they're altered almost beyond recognition to comic fans. One thing Marvel Studios has over DC films, and I will freely admit this,
That's a lot of things.
is that Marvel respects their characters because they're fans of the characters.
Yeah.
And I really wish Warner Brothers was fans of DC.
Is that a concession that Marvel is better? It sounds like that to me, is all I'm saying.
Like movie-wise?
Like, in general.
No, not at all. Because DC still has way better characters and stories.
Allegedly not, if they feel they need to keep changing them.
That's Warner Brothers. That's not DC. Disney trusts Marvel to make their own good movies. Warner Brothers doesn't trust DC.
Well, DC doesn't have their own studio system set up, do they?
No, they don't. They need one. They need to hire me to manage it as well. Because I'll be the Kevin Feige for DC. Absolutely.
Yeah, you'll look at Cassandra Cain and you'd be like, what the fuck is this? And you slap some people around. You'd be like,
You're fired.
you'd hold a comic book up in front of their face.
I don't think it would have been hard at all for the Birds of Prey writer Christina Hodson to make the characters a little more faithful. Honestly, why couldn't Cassandra Cain have been a mute? She was an orphan, so they got that part right. But maybe they could have kept her backstory of her being trained as an assassin at birth. And maybe she ran away and ended up in the foster care system, always trying to flee her father.
I wish she was mute. She was horrible at cussing.
It was really uncomfortable, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I got the same vibe from hearing her use swear words as when I listen to our podcast and I hear myself use swear words. I'm like, dude, you do not know how to use those words. You should not use them. But no, I think they could have made her inability to speak like psychological, which like would have been right up Harley Quinn's alley. And like part of her arc could have been to break Cassandra out of her shell and disable her like mental blocks and get her to speak.
Yeah.
I think maybe instead of a diamond, Black Mask could have been searching for Cassandra, this like unstoppable killing machine that no one would suspect or see coming.
That would have been so much cooler.
I think if you would have gotten rid of characters like Huntress, who was extremely shortchanged in this film, you would have had room to establish more of Cassandra. Let's get into the character breakdown. Harley Quinn was played by Margot Robbie, and she did, I think, a fantastic job as the character. She did better than I thought she would, because we've only seen her in one other film before.
Yeah, and her performance in this movie was leaps and bounds better than her performance in Suicide Squad.
In my opinion, like she embodies the role of Harley Quinn in the same way that Christopher Reeve embodied Superman.
That's a bold statement, but yeah, I couldn't think of too many actresses that could do what she did here. She brought a little je ne sais quoi to the role.
Margot Robbie is just Harley Quinn for me now. She nails the comedic timing. She totally sells me on the like athleticism of the character. She's just all around a perfect Harley Quinn. And if they got one character right in this film, it is her.
In terms of the performance, in terms of the characterization, in terms of the backstory and things like that, yeah, I would say that she's the best character.
Harley's arc revolved around responsibility and whether or not she could survive without the Joker or any kind of master. Like servitude toward the Joker had become her identity. Her name is essentially Harley Quinn, right? Which is a servant clown. And she benefited from her relationship with the Joker in that she had immunity from consequence and responsibility from her actions because everyone was afraid of the Joker. When Harley and the Joker broke up, she didn't tell anyone initially so she could continue to benefit from that immunity and live irresponsibly. At the beginning of the film, when she drunkenly decides to announce to the world that she and the Joker broke up, she loses that immunity and has to fend for herself while accidentally taking up the responsibility in protecting the young Cassandra. And it's not easy for her. Like when things get rough, she tries to give up Cassandra to Black Mask, but she learns through female camaraderie that she is capable and dare say even someone that should be feared.
Yeah, it was an interesting arc. It wasn't necessarily one of like becoming or maturing or things like that, because I wouldn't say that Harley Quinn ever really matures, nor should she.
It's more about realization and accepting responsibility.
Becoming your own person and becoming less codependent. I think this movie was the most I've ever been exposed to the character of Harley Quinn, because largely I've only seen her as a supporting character in most of the other media that I've seen her in.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the new Harley Quinn television show that's on DC Universe. So for me, this is the most I ever got to know the character and all the quirks and stuff. And I have to say that it did get me interested in learning more about her from like the comics and things like that.
Which you should already be thanks to our Harley Quinn versus Domino duel. Do you not listen to our podcast?
You gave me the history, but she's such a quirky character that I know that there's a lot of depth beyond just a character breakdown. Like, what was the beaver thing?
In the comics, the beaver is just kind of like a running gag to talk about vaginas without talking about vaginas.
Okay.
She's like, don't touch my beaver, that kind of thing.
But does the beaver talk to her?
Yeah, she talks to the beaver.
Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't sound nearly as cool and deep as I maybe thought it would be.
No, it's not deep at all.
All right. I guess it's not nearly as much of an Easter egg as I thought it was.
No. You know, there's a lot of comic readers out there who, especially Marvel ones, who I think don't quite understand the appeal of Harley Quinn. I remember like someone reached out to us on Facebook saying that they didn't understand her appeal. But she really is, in Jim Lee's own words, the fourth pillar of DC after the Trinity. She just sells incredibly well. And I don't know if it's just her look.
It's her attitude. She is the female Deadpool. Just crass and funny and devil-may-care. And there's an appeal to that exists outside of the characterizations of the DC Trinity of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman.
In a way, she's kind of like the foil to Wonder Woman in the same way that Batman is the foil to Superman. You know, Wonder Woman is this perfect figure in the same way that Superman is. But Harley Quinn is more relatable. I think a lot of women can relate to like trying to find your own independent self. She's probably more relatable than most DC characters, honestly. Not in that like she's crazy, but and that she's trying to improve herself.
Yeah. I always liked her arc from the comics.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
Moving from this abusive relationship to becoming a successful, independent woman.
And I really wish they would have touched on that relationship prior to this film, because you don't see that between Suicide Squad and this movie. Like, they're already broken up. You don't see too much of the abuse.
Right, yeah, there was very little abuse in Suicide Squad. That was one of the things that movie didn't get right, was the actual relationship between Joker and Harley.
The only thing they really mentioned in this one is that the Joker stole some of her really good heist ideas. And that's the abuse that she received.
Yeah.
Moving on to Black Canary, Journey Smollett-Bell. She also did a surprisingly good job as Black Canary.
She did much better than I thought she would, honestly. I was pretty damn pleased with Black Canary.
Yeah, the character was actually more faithful to the comics than I thought it was going to be. Not necessarily origin-wise, though they did allude to her mother being a metahuman crime fighter. But like, if I had a checklist of what Black Canary should be, like a street fighting, singing badass that could take out a room full of men, and cares about young girls, and can pull off fishnets, Journey's performance checked off all of those boxes.
Yeah.
Even if the fishnets were on her arms.
I loved her individual fight scenes, like when she was attacking the guys that were about to put Harley Quinn in the van.
Yeah.
She was very believable in her action. I think she was the most believable out of the 4 characters in her action scenes.
I think I mocked her kicking ability from what we saw in the trailers when we were talking about those when they were released. But seeing the full scene in action, she had some really good kicks.
Yeah.
Like, there was one move where she just like grabbed a guy's neck by her foot and then just like slammed it down to the ground. That was badass.
That was cool. And I think they nailed that down, but I didn't like how she was working for a villain.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
That didn't make sense to me. Black Canary from the comics is too righteous to work for a criminal mastermind like that.
I mean, yeah.
And really, she kind of was. She was an informant, but that came after she was approached by Renee Montoya. Who knows what would have happened otherwise?
I mean, Black Canary's arc in this film involved accepting her legacy. You know, it takes working for a person as horrible as Roman Sionis to push her into action to save a young girl that was on the streets just like her. This isn't a fully realized Black Canary. It's more like Black Canary Begins. But that makes sense because this is our first time seeing her on film. And I loved that we got to see her canary cry.
It kind of came out of the blue. I think most audience goers who've been watching this movie up to that point would be confused by all of a sudden seeing a metahuman with superpowers on the screen.
Yeah, I do wish this film had other metahumans in it, like they had in Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Because you're right, it probably was jarring for some audience members.
Yeah.
But I do like that she passed out from it, like she was out of practice.
Yeah, and eventually it would be cool to see the character grow to a point where she's able to wield the canary cry effortlessly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really hope that the studio does decide to make a Birds of Prey film without Harley Quinn, because I would like to see more of Journey as Dinah Lance.
Yeah, she was really strong in the role, I think. Moving on to Helena Bertinelli, or Huntress. She was played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and I loved her in this role, too. Like, Huntress has always kind of been a B-level Batgirl, but Mary Elizabeth Winstead brought some much-needed character to the role, which shouldn't be surprising because, you know, she's a leading lady in other films. She's a good actress.
Yeah.
I was surprised at how little she showed up in this film. Like, almost all of her scenes we saw glimpses of in the trailers.
Yeah, she was a little underutilized. I would have liked to have seen her interspersed throughout the first half of the film a little bit more, even if she's just going through her hit list, you know?
Yeah. Her arc revolved around revenge and killing the ones that killed her family. I loved that with what little we got of her, she was kind of a mystery player throughout the film. We didn't learn until pretty late in the runtime that she was Helena Bertinelli, or that her codename was even Huntress. She's the most Batman of the group. Like, her parents died in front of her, she took a vow to avenge them, she trained abroad, then returned to Gotham in a costume to exact justice. She's successful in her mission in this film, and I love how socially awkward she was at the end. Like she didn't have a proper childhood or a conventional upbringing. So now she's just trying to fit in with these other badass chicks now that her vendetta is complete. She's just like, and I also like how you were able to deliver high kicks in those tight pants.
And I would also like a fist bump.
Yeah, that was great.
It's not an approach to the character that I ever would have considered, but totally makes sense given the character's story.
And she has such a great backstory. I know Margot Robbie really fell in love with the character, and that's the reason she chose to do Birds of Prey over Gotham City Sirens. It was because of Huntress.
Oh, yeah.
Like, her backstory is almost like Shakespeare. And if some people are like born great, like Black Canary, she's a metahuman, and some achieve greatness, like Harley, who went to school. In the case of Helena, she had greatness thrust upon her and just like became a badass. So she has a really cool arc. Okay, Renee Montoya.
Now we get into the shitty characters.
She was played by Rosie Perez. I want to know how you could have a cop character that supposedly quotes from 80s cop movies that doesn't once say, I'm too old for this shit.
I mean, she is kind of old in the role. I mean, that sounds ageist, but I have to say, I did not buy Rosie Perez as any sort of credible threat against these like bodybuilder type guys that she's going up against.
For sure.
I feel like a piece of shit saying that, but really she couldn't. She couldn't.
I mean, she was kind of like a hardened veteran detective, so maybe she could have. And in that sense, you know, I think she did a fair job.
Renee Montoya should not be fighting side by side with superhero characters.
But she is a superhero. She's the Question. She becomes the Question later on.
Oh, she does?
Yeah.
Oh, that's badass, actually.
You did not know that?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, you did. Who doesn't?
How can she be the Question if she's that old?
Well, in the comics, she's not as old as Rosie Perez.
Well, that's just bad universe setup.
It is kind of. If anyone's familiar with the look of the Question, he basically looks like a guy in a trench coat and a fedora with no face. Like, it's just all skin there. That would be really weird to see Rosie Perez with no face.
Actually, that would have been pretty cool, I think, if she put on the Question's mask and went up against the bad guys, like, as a way to protect her career.
Oh, absolutely.
Considering she was on suspension, you know?
Yeah.
And she was taking vigilante justice into her own hands. Why didn't they do that? That would have been so cool.
Why doesn't DC just hire us to make these decisions for them?
I don't know.
We're willing. We're willing.
I prefer to work for Marvel Studios, but whatever. This will be a stepping stone to something greater.
Wow. The character of Renee Montoya is useful in this film for sort of setting the stage and the greater stakes for what's going on outside of everyone's trying to kill Harley. It's through her that we learn of the Bertinelli diamond and the threat of Black Mask getting it. It's kind of weird that we don't encounter that same fear from anyone else, like not even her police chief, who sucks.
Yeah, he does.
Like her partner sucks too. All the men in this movie suck. Every single one. And that kind of sucks in its own way.
What about the guy who rescued Helena Bertinelli?
Well, he killed the rest of her family. There's a lot of controversy around that in this film right now, like how there's no good men in this movie, but it didn't really bother me because this is Gotham City where everyone sucks.
Yeah, everyone's
men
shitty.
and women, except for Batman and Commissioner Gordon. Like even the female protagonists in this film weren't blameless.
Right.
Montoya herself stole evidence and mailed it to her ex-girlfriend at the DA's office.
She was also an alcoholic. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
They all had their vices.
Exactly. Despite the fact that she brought sort of that external perspective to everything else that was going on, she's still one of the characters that, if it were up to me, should have been cut from the film.
Yeah, I don't think she was entirely necessary.
Moving on to Cassandra Cain, she was played by newcomer Ella J. Bosco. And it's hard to say that she was miscast, not just because she was a child actor, but because the character she played wasn't really Cassandra Cain. They could have named her Sin, another character from the comics that's Black Canary's adopted daughter. They could have given her any other name, and I think it would have been more appropriate.
Right, this is Cassandra Cain in name only. Cassandra Cain is supposed to be the ultimate child assassin, and this was not her.
No.
I mean, they made her an adept pickpocket, and she was good at sleight of hand and stuff.
And I have no idea how, because she was just like bumping into everyone. She wasn't like tapping them on the shoulder or anything.
Yeah, she didn't seem like very quick with her hands. She was just basically just mashing her fingers into people's pockets and pulling stuff out without them noticing, which I don't know how that's possible.
That's probably why she kept getting caught by the police.
Yeah. Cassandra Cain was by far the biggest like missed mark out of all the characterizations we see here.
Yeah.
Like Black Canary and Huntress and Renee Montoya are just slightly off from what they are in the comics, but Cassandra Cain was unrecognizable to me.
Yeah. In this world, she's an orphaned pickpocket who gets caught all the time and thinks swallowing 30-carat diamonds is a good idea. Her foster family is shitty, so her arc involves learning to trust people, which she begins to, until Harley tries to give her up to Black Mask. She doesn't stay mad at Harley for long, though.
Right, because Harley ends up earning her trust back by saving her life.
Right, so she kind of starts off with this like forced trust situation where she's being held by Harley against her will, sort of. She does like Harley. I guess that helps. But later on, it's more of an earned trust.
I'm still kind of hoping that they can maybe salvage this character if they decide to do a Birds of Prey sequel where Harley teaches her how to fight or something like that. But I really don't see Cassandra Cain ever really being redeemed, and I don't ever see her becoming Batgirl like she does in the comics.
They'd have to pull like a huge fast one where, surprise, Cassandra Cain, this girl that you adopted sort of, is actually a lethal assassin.
But then she would have shown that in the Funhouse fight instead of running away the entire time, being useless.
Moving on to Roman Sionis, Black Mask.
I loved Ewan McGregor in this movie.
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah, he was both hilarious and terrifying in this role.
Yeah, he did a good job of pulling off both.
The fact that Ewan McGregor could make a misogynist villain that wants to kill a child almost likable shows just how charismatic he is as an actor.
Yeah. He had so many great moments, except for the tabletop scene, which was really uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was, no.
It was I had to avert my eyes.
But I think it was also kind of crucial in making you not like him, because otherwise you would like him.
Right. Yeah, he did have to cross the line to become an adequate villain.
Yeah, for sure. His motivation is pretty straightforward. He wants more money, more power. All he needs is the diamond to get it, and he could allegedly rule Gotham's entire underworld, not just the East End, which is where most of the film apparently takes place. He's very different from the comics. Like the best Batman villains, Roman Sionis is another like dark mirror reflection of Bruce Wayne, whom he actually spent time with as a kid since they both grew up in rich families in Gotham. The difference is that Roman killed his parents and made a black mask from his father's casket.
That's messed up.
Yeah. But in this film, Roman was merely cut off from his family's business, so he had to make his own way in Gotham. He comes across as very narcissistic, in Harley's own words, and his childish reactions to things are pretty funny. Like when he shows Black Canary his mask collection and he's like, "This is 1,000 years old and now it's in my home. Isn't that weird?"
Yeah.
Or like when Harley and Cassandra are having like a heart-to-heart at the climax on the pier and Roman's like, "Ew."
Yeah. It's so good. And it's really too bad that they killed him off.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, honestly. He's not the most well-known of Batman villains, but I would have loved to have seen him later on in future films.
Yeah, I guess most villains are one and done, unless you're like Loki or something like that.
Yeah.
But I guess if you had to pick a villain that survived a movie and went on to subsequent films, you could do better than Black Mask. I'll miss Ewan McGregor's portrayal, though.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so the last character is Victor Zsasz, played by Chris Messina. Other critics have said that Chris Messina did a great job in this role, and I don't know, I thought he played him kind of lazy.
I thought he did a great job.
Really?
I really liked his character in this movie.
Like, Zsasz has a bit more manic energy in the comics. Like, did you think he was menacing in this film?
I absolutely thought he was menacing. I thought he was very dangerous feeling. But he was kind of chill and disaffected by it. You know, the only time that you really saw him being manic was when he was actually in the act of carving some guy's face off.
Ugh. Oh, that was hard to watch.
Yeah, that was gross.
He was too much of like a Black Mask gopher for my liking. Like, it's pretty obvious that he had a romantic crush on Roman in the film, but even that seems out of character for Zsasz, who really only cares about killing.
It seemed like, unlike his comic book counterpart, he would only scar himself when he killed women.
Yeah, he mentioned birds.
Yeah.
And he only referred to the mother of that family that he was peeling the faces off. He only referred to her as a bird. So, yeah, I think it's another, like, misogynistic villain. He didn't have an arc in this film, from what I could tell. He was just kind of there to be a dick and have someone for Huntress to kill that was tied to the larger story.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
It was kind of too bad that he didn't survive for the final fight. I thought his death was ultimately a little unsatisfying, considering everything that he did in the course of the movie.
Yeah. I did love that. Like, Harley was, like, stabbing him with that little trank dart.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
That was funny.
But Black Mask's death was kind of anticlimactic as well.
I kind of liked that, actually. I thought it was hilarious. I think what it lacked in, like, dramatic weight, it made up for in just violence and hilarity. It was memorable to me.
I could see that. I mean, the audiences in both of the showings I went to both responded pretty well to it.
Yeah.
They were laughing.
When I saw him blow up, I was like, damn!
I think that was my same reaction. So let's get into the story highlights. The movie starts off with an animated origin of Harley's childhood and relationship with the Joker.
Yeah, I thought this was well done.
Yeah, it was kind of convenient. It was a nice wrap-up of everything we needed to know about her before going into the film. And I love that it started off with, like, they say you should always start at the beginning, and then it shows, like...
the sperm
yeah,
going
sperm.
into the egg.
Yeah, exactly. The animation leads to their breakup, where she copes by getting a hyena, playing roller derby, and getting drunk in Roman Sionis' nightclub. Now, I noticed in the animation that it was a different version of the Joker than the Suicide Squad Jared Leto version.
Yeah, it was a more comic book accurate version of the Joker.
There was no damaged tattoo across his forehead.
Right. Thank God.
When she got the hyena, I kind of had another oh damn reaction when you see him eating the leg of the guy that she got the hyena from.
Yeah, that was funny.
It's also established during these early scenes when Harley Quinn is doing a roller derby that Cassandra Cain is a pickpocket. That's the first time we see her. So after being teased behind her back by some of her roller derby friends, Harley blows up Ace Chemicals, announcing her and the Joker's breakup to the world and ending her immunity, as noticed by Renee Montoya. The scene where Renee is dissecting that Italian restaurant murder scene was pretty cool. It was like the most detective-y that we got to see the character. And I think really that's ultimately her biggest contribution as like a superhero character.
Uh-huh.
While Black Mask kills a family, Harley runs from Renee Montoya and everyone else trying to kill her while protecting a delicious-looking egg sandwich. I got so hungry.
Yes.
Looking at that sandwich.
She called it an egg sandwich, but I guess in New York it's known as a bacon, egg, and cheese. Like one word almost. That's what they should have called it in the movie.
It looked so good. Huntress saves Harley from being killed before Harley is captured by Roman Sionis' men. Meanwhile, at the police station, we see that Cassandra has been taken into custody while Renee explains her case against Roman Sionis to her chief. Black Canary reveals to Renee over the phone that Cassandra has the diamond Roman is looking for just as Harley shows up at the police station and starts wreaking havoc in order to get to Cassandra Cain.
That was a great action scene and was the one that really first revealed Chad Stahelski's influence on these action scenes. Because the chase scene where Renee Montoya was after Harley Quinn was pretty good, but it wasn't really high adrenaline.
No, I think it was played more for laughs, like how she would cut to like people who they were and what their beef was with her.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah. But it wasn't like John Wick style. I mean, none of these action scenes were comparable to a John Wick action scene, but it started getting closer with Harley Quinn's infiltration of the police station. It was very choreographed and well done.
Yeah, and it was funny. Like the way she shot that cop in the ass and he just like flew into the air with confetti.
Yeah. Why do you think Harley Quinn used non-lethal rounds as opposed to lethal rounds? Because she didn't want to have mass murder charges on her head?
I guess. I think she probably just thought she didn't need to bother, and she was successful, in spite of the fact that the police had guns.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was really
They
weird.
never pulled them out.
No.
Dumb.
So during this scene, we rewind to a week prior in the timeline when Harley confesses to Black Canary that she and the Joker broke up, and Black Canary saves Harley from some kidnappers. Roman notices Black Canary's fighting skill and makes her his new driver. Later on, Roman sends Black Canary and Zsasz to get his diamond, but Cassandra steals it from Zaz's pocket. Cassandra eats the diamond when she gets arrested.
She eats it, right, to avoid it being taken from her by the police.
Yes. Roman gets angered by this and decides to take it out on Harley, who offers to get the diamond back. I did love during this scene how she kept like interrupting Roman to like psychoanalyze him.
Yeah.
that was great.
That was one thing that this movie did really well, was play up her intelligence and psychoanalysis. That's not something that Suicide Squad did enough of, or really did any of outside of the extended cut.
Right. So Roman lets Harley go while also setting a $500,000 bounty on Cassandra's head. This takes us kind of full circle back to the present story where Harley's in the police station. She successfully breaks Cassandra out of jail while fending off hordes of police detainees and mercenaries also trying to get the girl.
I loved the jail cell fight scene. I think it just went really well with the music and was pretty hardcore. But the best action scene in this movie was in the evidence room.
The evidence room scene is my favorite scene of the film. Just seeing all the different things she could do with the bat.
Yeah, the way she handled that bat was just... I've never seen things done like that with a baseball bat. Between like bouncing it off the ground and like switching hands with it and spinning it around and stuff like that.
She was using it like a bow staff.
It would have been cool if we saw some of those moves in Suicide Squad.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
It was so brutal too, some of those moments. Like when she just like takes apart that guy's legs.
Yeah, that was hardcore.
Or when she like throws the bowling ball into that guy's junk. Oh, I felt that one.
Yep.
I also like how she was able to take out Renee Montoya in the end with that phone kick. That was pretty cool.
That was cool.
So Harley and Cassandra escape in a van, and they go to a store to buy laxatives and to hide out at Harley's apartment.
They didn't buy the laxatives, they stole the laxatives.
That's true. That's true.
I did think that it would have been a funny gag if while they were eating cereal, instead of pouring her milk, Harley poured her the X-Lax into the cereal instead.
That would have been great, yeah. I did love Bruce the Hyena. We did not get enough Bruce the Hyena in this
he
film.
disappeared after the explosion in the apartment, and we never really saw him until the very end.
He should have been there in the final fight.
He should have been. It would have made the final fight so much more believable. Harley could have used him like how Halle Berry used her dogs in John Wick.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
They should have done that. So Huntress coincidentally shows up at the restaurant under Harley's apartment, and we get her backstory, which is pretty faithful to the comics. I think they did a really good job with this character. Seeing her train in Sicily in like her sweatpants suit was pretty cool. I thought it was cheesy looking in the trailers, but it totally worked in the film.
It did. Yeah, because she was like part of like this tracksuit mafia in Sicily.
Yeah.
They're easy to move around in, you know?
Right, exactly. So Roman learns that Harley escaped with Cassandra and makes a girl dance/strip in his club in anger before Renee is suspended from her job for stealing evidence.
Why would anybody go to Roman Sionis' nightclub if he does shit like that to his guests?
Exactly.
Maybe that was like the first time he ever did it.
He seems pretty unstable.
Right. So I can imagine.
Right. After that, a random guy blows up Harley's apartment with a slingshot. I thought that was weird. Like, she didn't know who he was or what the grievance was. The grievance was essentially that he had no dick. That's what it said on screen.
The grievance was that she didn't have sex with him, I think. I think that's what that emoji implied.
Really?
Yeah, some guy that she spurned some random time, and he was pissed off at her.
Oh, interesting. Harley decides to give up Cassandra after Doc betrayed her, and she tells Roman to meet her at the Joker's old headquarters, Amusement Mile. Black Canary texts Renee where Harley and Cassandra are before she and Zsasz drive to Amusement Mile, followed by Huntress. Zsasz learns about Black Canary's betrayal and tells Roman, who puts on his black mask and gathers his false face society. No, they don't refer to it as that in the film, but in the comics, the false face society is his gang, and each member wears a different mask.
Oh, they should have mentioned that. Like, I just thought it was just a total random thing.
Yeah, no, it's a thing in the comics.
Okay.
Renee shows up first, and Harley kicks her out of a window.
How does she survive that, though?
Exactly. She just comes back later on in the scene.
Through the window?
Yeah, without the handcuffs.
Yeah, doesn't make any sense.
It was dumb. I was like, what? Ugh, plot hole.
Yeah.
Black Canary and Zsasz show up next, the latter of whom tranquilizes Harley. Zsasz is killed by Huntress, and while the women point guns at each other, including Renee, Black Mask shows up with his army. The women fight off the army together in a funhouse fight scene that I think was kind of embarrassingly bad.
This was the worst action scene of the entire movie. It was so damn awkward. It's like nobody knew quite how to choreograph the scene around all this wacky shit that was in the building.
And if you're in a real fight in this funhouse, you're not going to be jumping around on all of these different things to fight.
It was like people were like falling over themselves. It was just bad. And like none of the false face gang, I guess, carried guns. Otherwise, this would have been over a long time ago.
Right, but they all are expert trampoline jumpers.
Yeah, it was something like out of Batman and Robin, honestly.
It absolutely was.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Thankfully, it's not like the final action scene in the movie.
It is the only one where they like team up and fight, though. So it doesn't make it any better.
Yeah.
So the ladies beat up all the bad guys, and they make it to the entrance of the booby trap, which is the name of the funhouse.
I like
that.
And
that's where all of the guns show up. Renee gets shot, but of course she's saved by that black and red Harley Quinn bustier that was apparently bulletproof. I would have loved to have seen Margot Robbie in that.
Yeah, right? Yeah, what the hell was she? She was wearing like these gold suspenders instead.
Yeah, it's like, wear the bulletproof thing.
Yeah, wear the iconic outfit.
Exactly. That would have been great for the final scene. I would have loved that.
Mm-hmm.
So Black Mask kidnaps Cassandra, and Black Canary uses her canary cry to clear a path for Harley to chase after Black Mask's car on her roller skates with the help of Huntress on her motorcycle.
I loved that scene. It was so cool to see somebody going that fast on roller skates, being pushed by the motorcycle and the cars and stuff.
Oh, for sure. Like, that looked dangerous.
Yeah, it was a dangerous stunt. I doubt they actually did the stunt. There's no way she was doing this on roller skates because one fall would have been a disaster.
Well, they weren't driving that fast in actuality.
Oh, really?
And you could see from behind the scenes shots that it was Margot Robbie. She was on wires, though, that prevented her from falling.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I like some of the acrobatic tricks that she had when she was like flipping onto the cars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I thought this is a really well done action scene. It had a lot of anxious energy because of the roller skates, and I think that added to the action.
The only thing I didn't like was how Huntress whipped Harley.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
I mean, it was a callback to the roller derby scene at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
But motorcycles are fast.
Right.
She didn't need to whip Harley to get her up to the car.
Right. Exactly.
So Black Mask's car eventually crashes, and he holds Cassandra hostage on the Founders Pier.
Did I see a couple pot on Founders Pier?
Maybe. Did you?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't think it was Oswald Cobblepot, but I think it was maybe one of his ancestors because it looked exactly like the penguin.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that. That's awesome. Black Mask taunts Harley before he gets blown up by a grenade Cassandra had stolen. But this is really the scene where Harley kind of comes into her own and says that, like, your protection and Mr. J's protection is all based on fear. Well, people should be fearing me.
Yeah.
Like, I could protect myself.
Right. Which was great. It was a great line.
Yeah, it was a great line. I don't know how I feel about Cassandra getting, like, the final kill shot and not Harley. Mm-hmm. I guess it was what it was. And maybe that's kind of why it felt anticlimactic to me.
Well, it also felt anticlimactic because of the way they treated his death. They're just like, fuck that guy. Yeah. Tacos, anyone?
That's right. That's right. The ladies bond over tacos and margaritas after this whole ordeal, and Black Canary, Huntress, and Renee kind of decide to form a team while Harley and Cassandra flee.
With the diamond.
And I love how Harley was like, kid, if that burrito doesn't get you to shit, nothing will.
Yeah.
So Renee quits her job. Her and Black Canary and Huntress form the Birds of Prey in their purple, like, costumes.
What did you think of those costumes?
They were through the lens of Suicide Squad's reinterpretations, And I didn't really care for all of those. I didn't really care for these. I want my actual comic book costumes. I think Journey Smollett Bell would actually rock a pretty cool leather jacket and fishnets.
Hell yes, you would. Yeah, this looked more like a leisure suit, like something you would wear at like a 70s disco or something, as opposed to a crime-fighting outfit.
Yeah.
I did like Huntress's mask, though, and like how her lenses kind of flipped. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, they were kind of like teardrop-shaped lenses, and then she could flip them up so they were like pointy. So she kind of got like the bat ears kind of going, almost.
Yeah.
That was cool.
And Renee Montoya's outfit was just kind of nondescript.
Yeah, it was nothing. Harley sells the diamond, and she and Cassandra and Bruce the hyena and her beaver live happily ever after with egg sandwiches. That's the end of the film. Turns out Bruce the hyena was just wandering around Chinatown.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Now, going through the story highlights was fun. This movie was entertaining, and I did enjoy a lot of it. It's really more during like the character breakdown and, the overall breakdown that you see the flaws in the movie. A lot of them really are compensated through the enjoyment while watching the movie, though.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think the moral of this story is that when you alienate or ignore the established fan base of the source material, it never turns out well. And
no matter how good of a movie you think you make.
Even if the film is somewhat good. Like next to Catwoman, this is probably the most egregious example among superhero films of filmmakers warping established characters to suit their own tastes and ideas rather than giving fans what they want to pay for.
Right.
Like, I want to pay for a faithful Birds of Prey film.
Yes.
Just make it, and I'll pay for it. I'm actually really sad that Birds of Prey is not doing well, because last time this happened with Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, Warner Brothers really changed up their schedule.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm not sure if this means there's going to be fewer DC films going forward or not.
I do think that DC is still on a streak in terms of quality of films, with Shazam and Aquaman and The Joker.
And this film.
Yeah. Even though I think Birds of Prey is probably the weakest out of all those films, I wouldn't write off DC because of this. I do think that the box office, though, will provide a chilling effect for any potential sequels.
Which makes me super sad for characters like Black Canary and Huntress.
Yeah.
Those characters specifically.
They deserved better.
Yeah, they did. Hopefully, Wonder Woman 1984, the only other major DC film to come out this year, will be good and kind of garner goodwill towards audiences for DC again.
It's just another roadblock in DC's journey to be a well-established brand like Marvel. They gotta be consistent with these movies, and they're just not.
We need a Kevin Feige, and it should be me. All in all, I'm giving this film 3.5 stars. It's good.
It's better than Suicide Squad, which we gave 3 stars.
But it's not as good as the films it tries to be, like Deadpool, which we gave 4 stars.
Right. I would agree with that. I would also give the movie 3.5 stars.
That does it for this review. Let us know what you thought of the film if you've seen it already. You can reach out to us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or email us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com.
You can find links to all of our social media profiles if you visit our website at dynamicduel.com, a website where you can also listen to episodes of this podcast, check out bonus content that we offer via our Patreon page, as well as shop merchandise that features Jonathan's no prize artwork.
This week, I'll be drawing Harley Quinn, and it's about time we got her on some of our merchandise.
Yeah, if you guys are looking to buy a Harley Quinn t-shirt, visit dynamicduel.com. Thanks, guys, for listening to this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the show if you haven't already, or share us, rate us, or review us on whatever platform you're listening to us on, as a means to help Jonathan and I expand our audience. We always appreciate anyone who's able to do that for us, and want to give a big thanks.
Our next episode is a duel episode. We're going to be pitting Hawk and Dove, who have been members of the Birds of Prey in the comics, against North Star and Aurora, who are members of Alpha Flight.
That's going to be a fun 2 versus 2 duel episode, which we've only done a few times, like with Cloak and Dagger versus the Wonder Twins, and the Daughters of the Dragon versus the Daughters of the Demon.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun.
Yeah, so definitely look forward to that next week. A special thanks to our executive producers, John Spees and Bodo Winter.
We'll talk to you guys next week.
Up, and away.
True believers.